You're tuning into the Real Estate Diversification Podcast, hosted by trusted and experienced real estate attorneys who are also seasoned real estate investors themselves. Are you ready to explore unique real estate investing opportunities? Ready to learn about emerging trends and new ideas? Your hosts will help you understand the practical and legal complexities of a myriad of real estate investments so that you can maximize your potential and achieve financial freedom. Now, listen in and get ready to learn.
Welcome back, Red Podcast Nation. In this episode, we're going to talk about investing in office properties. I'd just like to give you a little bit of background about myself and why I'm the person that's presenting today on the Red Podcast. My background, my name is Jay Heck. I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 25 years. Between 2009 and 2019, I was the legal counsel on about $3 million square feet of office property leasing. So I've seen a lot of office leases, and hopefully my experience will be useful for you today. So as we start off, we ask, well, why invest in office properties? And that's easy answer to that. Why do you invest in anything? Why do you invest in stocks, bonds, commodities, or other types of real estate? Their answer is because of the return on your money. And in real estate, including office properties, that principally comes across in four ways. The first advantage to investing in real estate is cash flow, right? You'll hopefully, if everything's done right, the rents will be greater than your expenses, and there'll be something left over at the end of the day. That's generally what's known as real estate investors as cash flow. So folks that aren't in real estate just think of that as profit. The second advantage of investing in real estate is the depreciation or the tax benefits. Although if you purchase real estate and you do it correctly, it should actually appreciate in value. The IRS actually lets you claim that the property depreciates in value, that it wears out over time. And because of that, you can take a certain amount of depreciation each year, and that amount offsets your income. And this is something that's unique to real estate. A lot of investors, before they start investing in real estate, they don't realize the advantage of the depreciation, and the depreciation is just sort of like the cherry on the top of the sundae. And there's also a certain thing known as bonus depreciation. And if you're an investor in real estate, you may already know what bonus depreciation is. That's probably a topic for a whole nother show. But if you are currently a real estate investor and you don't know what bonus depreciation is, you should have a discussion with your tax preparer, and they can educate you on that. But that's a tremendous advantage that's available to you. That's an accelerated form of depreciation. The third reason, and we just touched upon that briefly, that you invest in real estate is for appreciation. So we're currently in an inflationary cycle. The value of assets are going up, including real estate assets. Of course, rents and costs and so forth are going up as well. But with the appreciation, that's your inflation hedge. That's your offset against inflation. So as the price of things go up, the price of real estate goes up. If you purchase commodities like gold or silver, they may or may not go up with inflation. But generally, real estate assets are expected to appreciate. And that's assuming that you've done everything correctly and you have a well-located, good property. The fourth reason that you invest in real estate, including office properties, is leverage, which is also known as ability to borrow, or OPM, which stands for other people's money. Real estate assets, lenders will actually loan you money to purchase the property, and then you pay the lender back with the income off of the property. That's unusual to real estate. And because you can borrow a great deal. If you're buying stocks on margin, you're probably not going to get the kind of leverage that you can get in real estate. The other nice thing about leverage in real estate is if, and particularly office properties or other types of commercial properties, is that you can do syndications. That means you can bring in partners and they can put in an equity piece into the deal, and it doesn't have to be all of your own money. Yes, there needs to be money down, but it doesn't necessarily need to be your money as the person who sourced the deal. And the fifth reason and this is kind of unique to office properties, but also other types of commercial real estate. And we're going to do other podcasts on other types of commercial real estate, so stay tuned. There's a stability in the commercial leases that you typically don't see. For example, if you're an investor in residential leases are typically 1 year, maybe 18 months. Sometimes they're less than a year. Tenants, once their lease is expired, they're free to leave and move on. If they find a slightly better deal somewhere down the road and their expenses to move are not that great, they might just decide, well, I'm leaving here and I'm going to this other apartment or townhouse or residence that where the rent's just slightly cheaper or the amenities are just slightly better. With commercial leases, typically your leases are 5 years in length. Sometimes they're 10 years in length, and then often they have options to renew to where the lease term may be many, many years. And of course, if you're a business and you have an established location, folks know who you are, where you're at, how to find you. You don't want to go moving around. It's not that important when it's a residence. The people that you know will probably be able to find you, and you can let them know. But if they lose track of you as a business location, particularly if they're not yet a client or a customer, then they may just think you've gone out of business. So the continuity is a big advantage to office properties and some other types of commercial leases. Now, all of that being said, office properties are probably not a first-time investor opportunity. There's complexities in it. It's different than residential, but I would say the exception to that is probably small businesses that are intending to purchase the location where they're at. So if you're a tenant in a 4-unit office property, and you've got a good running business, it's established, you've been there, it's probably a good idea to consider purchasing the building that you're in. In fact, I recall reading many years ago an article that talked about in small business owners who had done just that, purchased the property that they're in, and their businesses, if they didn't have a transition plan in place, if they were just going to sell to a third party, their multiples on their earnings that they received when they sold their business were higher than those that did not own their location. That just sort of makes sense. It's a more stable situation, and that's not just because of the real estate. They got a higher valuation on the business portion of their business, and they were able to sell the real estate at market value, and so it just creates this business synergy, and that's attractive to a purchaser or a subsequent owner. Okay, you've decided that you want to make the leap. You maybe have invested in other types of real estate, and now you're going to invest in office properties, or maybe you are a first-time real estate investor, but you just decided that you know office, or office is for some reason is particularly attractive to you, and you want to own office properties. It's essential that you assemble a team to assist you, unless you can do all of these things yourself, and almost no one has all of these skills solely by themselves. There are a few exceptional people perhaps out there that can do all of these, but most of us would need assistance. And you probably thought the first thing that I was going to tell you was that you need a good real estate attorney. That's true, but what I think is probably the most important is a relationship with a lender, because uh, you're not, most real estate investors are not just going to reach in their pocket and pay cash for the property. You lose out on the leverage advantage, and plus most folks just don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even tens of thousands of dollars in cash that they can lay out. So if you have an establishment with a lender, you're off to a good start. You want to make sure that that lender lends on the type of properties that you're interested in purchasing. In this case, office properties. You would like to know that they have some sort of experience. So probably good if you haven't spoken to them. You need to speak to them no matter what, and ask them, do they have experience lending in these type of properties? What type of loan to value ratios will they lend? Do they keep these loans in-house? Do they sell them? If they sell those loans, probably not a lot of room to negotiate the loan documents. If they keep them in-house, more of a chance that you might be able to negotiate some of the terms on the loan documents. And I'm talking legal terms, other than financial terms. Obviously, the financial terms are also subject to negotiation. So, you want to know, can you get a fixed rate loan? Will it be a flexible rate loan? If it adjusts, when would it adjust? Are there caps? Are there ceilings? Annual caps, lifetime ceilings on loans, things such as that. Now, okay, so that's the first member of your team. The second member of your team is indeed a good real estate attorney who can walk you through the legal aspects of the transaction. You want to ask them similar sorts of questions. What kind of experience do you have in this area? Have you dealt with commercial real estate generally? Because most of the principles that are applicable to office properties would be applicable to other types of commercial real estate as well, and just gauge their experience. The third member of your team that you're going to need is a real estate broker. Okay, and that's going to be to source properties, and it's also going to be to potentially to lease the properties if you have vacancies. The real estate broker, a good real estate broker, is worth their weight in gold. The fourth member of your team that I suggest that you have is a property manager, and unless you intend to manage the day-to-day operations of the property yourself, good property manager, also incredibly valuable. And so they're going to take the calls when the pilot light goes out on the furnace, or that the water heater is not heating the water, maintenance calls, repairs, problems. They're going to handle it, and then they'll report back to you when you, same sort of thing. When selecting a property manager, probably want to go in and quiz them. What's their experience handling the type of property that you intend to purchase or have purchased, and then how does their fee arrangement work, and just dig into that questions with property manager, and they'll make your life so much easier with a good property manager. The fifth member of your team I suggest is you have either a CPA or a tax professional who's familiar with the ins and outs of real estate. We talked about the depreciation and the bonus depreciation. A good tax professional should understand that, be able to prepare your tax returns, and make sure that you take advantage of all the tax benefits that are there with investing in real estate. The sixth, and what I have as the final member of your team, although you may decide that you need to add more folks to the team, these are the core folks that you're going to need. The sixth and final is your insurance agent. The insurance agent is your risk manager, helps you make sure that if there's a casualty, that the problems are addressed, the property's repaired, put back in service. And then your insurance agent can also help you plan. Do you need a high deductible, a low deductible? What's your level of risk that you're willing to take on? And that can, of course, can affect your insurance rates and your premiums. And so, and a good insurance agent will be able to work through those issues with you. Moving on. Now I want to address just some of the, talk about some of the different types of office real estate. The first category would be the quality of the property. And generally that's broken down in the industry. And these are sort of fuzzy terms that don't have strict definitions, but they basically classify office properties into A properties, B properties, and C properties. A properties are your high line, premium location, national tenants, big floor plates, glass and steel, or quality appearing exterior, and so mostly this is about appearance, but and also function. And then inside they have high-speed internet access and the ability to handle the office tenants' needs, so things such as electrical and so forth. B quality properties, they're like the A properties, only sort of less so. Their appearance is not quite as nice. Their location perhaps not quite as good, but they function much the same as an A property. And going back to the A property is a show place, right? Place where you receive customers and clients, and you can show the world, hey, I've arrived. I'm in this high quality office building, and oftentimes up on an upper floor. And as the level above sea level rises of your property, the rents typically go up because you get the quality views, and it's very impressive. So we've talked about A and B. The C properties, as you probably can guess, they're the lower quality properties. They're typically older. They might be in neighborhoods or areas which were once fashionable, but are not so much or not at all any longer. They may have strange floor plates or floor plans, or structural members that interfere with the operation of the property. They're just older typically, and they function a little bit different. They're not what everyone is out there craving, looking for, and hoping to find. And of course, most tenants want to find an A or a B property for a C property price. But there's still lots of opportunities out there in C properties, particularly those that have been neglected, and there's an opportunity to add some value. C properties can be extremely profitable and also provide a lower price point entry. And then talking about types of properties, then there's also the distinguished by the type of structure that we're talking about. You can have single tenant properties, and those can be small or large, but oftentimes you have a single tenant building there are office parks that are composed of single tenant buildings with individual ownership, and but you're sort of limited there on your opportunities because it's designed and built for a single tenant. In fact, it may be a building that was built to suit for a specific tenant at the time it was constructed. Different type of office property are strip properties, and you've probably all seen those. They look very much like a strip retail center, only they have tenants, and typical tenant in a strip property, which is kind of a hybrid between a retail setting and an office setting. But insurance agents, real estate brokerages, dental practices, perhaps, and maybe some other health professions. But it's just a multi-unit building, typically one story, but it's more than one space. And then another type of office property is what's called a low-rise property or a garden property, and it's a dedicated office building, but it's 1 to 3 stories, and that's basically the what determines that it's low-rise. Then there are mid-rise properties, and once again here the definitions on these gets a little fuzzy, but mid-rise is over 3 stories, and then what the upper end of the mid-rise property is that's where it's kind of fuzzy, and then last category is the high-rise property. So that's the glass and steel high-rise office building in a downtown location that's in a dense neighborhood of similar type buildings. You don't usually see these out in the distant suburbs or exurbs or small towns. And so, you know, you would make the selection of, you know, what type of property that you intend to target, or perhaps what type of property is available. The beginning investor or the novice investor probably looking at one of those first two or three types, probably not looking at a mid-rise office building or a high-rise office building unless you have very deep pockets. And then when you're deciding that you've made the decision, you're going to make the leap, you're into the process of selecting a property. It's important that you do your analysis, and there's three types of analysis. The first type, of course, is financial. If it's an existing building with existing tenants, you're going to want to review the leases. They're going to need to be abstracted for all the financial information. And of course, the most important thing on that is the rents. What rent is the tenant paying? Are there opportunities to raise the rents, or do the rents increase annually? All of that goes into your financial equation. Then in the leases, look for things that can be passed through. And unlike residential leases, most commercial leases, or many commercial leases, are what we call triple net leases, or at least some sort of a modified net lease. And what that means is the landlord or the owner has the opportunity to pass through the expenses of operating the property. So the rent is one category, and it's typically fixed, or at least it changes with on a determinable basis, like we talked about annual rent increases or annual rent increases. And then there's a separate category, and that's what are called triple nets or pass-throughs. So paving the parking lot, replacing carpet, painting the walls, anything that's done to the common area typically, and the common area is the area that's not occupied by the tenants. Those are going to show up on the pass-throughs, and those costs go past, as it sounds, passed straight through to the tenant. Also things like taxes and insurance. So the tenants bear those costs. They also bear the risk that those things will increase. And as the landlord, you can collect that steady rent payment. The residential leases are typically gross leases, and the landlord bears all the risk of the cost on that, right? The landlord pays for their own insurance, the landlord pays for the taxes, and the rent is set at the beginning and doesn't adjust until the lease expires. And so if those costs increase, the landlord has to pay those themselves, and without the ability to pass those on. Then part of your financial analysis, you also want to look at the tenants. And important thing about the tenants is what kind of credit do the tenants have? And we're talking about businesses here, generally, rather than individuals. And so sometimes there are credit reporting bureaus if it's a big national tenant, and some big national tenants lease small spaces. If it's a big national tenant, they're publicly traded. There's more than one recording bureau. Standard & Poor's, Dun & Bradstreet, Moody's can all give you a picture of that potential or actual tenant's credit, and to help you make your decisions. If it's a small tenant, a mom and pop, or a local business with a single location, you want to dig into that tenant's financials. And it's something to consider if you're going to be leasing to small tenants and they don't have, the business is thinly capitalized, doesn't have a lot of resources. You may be looking to get a personal guarantee from the principal of the business. And that's not unusual. It's very typical in a mom and pop business situation. Then as a second part of your analysis would be the physical analysis. And so that's what you would think of as an inspection, someone to come in and take a look at the property and tell you if it's structurally sound. Also, you'd want to look with an eye on, does it function as a modern building? Does it have high-speed data connections or the ability to add it? Is the electrical system able to bear up to the use of the tenants? Some, what we think of as office tenants, like medical facilities, health-related businesses, they may have significant electrical requirements that an older property just might not have. And then also as part of your physical analysis, the traffic counts, the visibility of the building, access to the building, ingress and egress, also such things as signs, in particular signs on the building. If some tenants want marquee signage on the exterior of the building at the top of the building, but you probably don't want to grant that to every tenant in the building. First off, if you've got a major tenant that occupies a large portion of the building, if you give a sign to them and you also give a sign to a tenant that occupies a relatively small portion of the building, the larger tenant's going to feel like, well, why are we paying so much more in rent and so forth if any tenant in the building can get the same benefits that we get? And then just part of the old rules, what's the 3 cardinal rules of real estate? Location, location, location. And that needs to go into your analysis. And then what I'd say the best for last would be the legal analysis of the property. And the legal analysis is where you need your second member of your team, your real estate attorney, and the leases need to be abstracted to make sure that there aren't any strange provisions like early termination clauses. Some tenants will negotiate those, particularly new businesses or businesses that aren't sure if this particular location is going to be successful, might have the option 2 years down the road to terminate the lease. If you're purchasing this property and you think it's a 5-year lease and they're gone in 2 years, that's going to change all of your financial expectations. The second thing that needs to be looked into is just typical title and survey considerations, making sure that the owner has good title to the property and that they convey it to you. And then zoning, you want to make sure the property has the proper zoning so that the tenants can operate in the building. Typically that's going to be general business or business office zoning. And so that gives you just an overview of investing in office properties. And stay tuned for the next episode, which is going to be key lease office provisions. And thank you for tuning in. Invest wisely. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Real Estate Diversification Podcast. Did you enjoy the episode? Visit www.rediversification.com to tune in to more exciting episodes and free information and tools that will help you succeed. Leave us a review and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and our other social media channels at the RED Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Missouri Bar Advertising Disclosure. Neither the Supreme Court of Missouri nor the Missouri Bar reviews nor approves certifying organizations or specialist designations. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.